Well, 770,000. A staggering number when talking about the number of Americans who have no roof over their heads to sleep under each night. More heartbreaking is that among them, there are even children, veterans, and the elderly. Those who once worked, paid taxes, and believed in a stable future in the very country they helped build. It is paradoxical that America spends billions on foreign aid, yet cannot provide a safe home for its most vulnerable citizens. This is not just a social issue. This is a crack, spreading, smoldering, and threatening every value that America once prided itself on. In today's video, you will be taken to the heart of the 10 largest cities in the United States. Once, the centers of prosperity, opportunity, and civilization. But now, they have become homeless hells, where the darkness of despair is gradually swallowing the last hope of those who once had a home. Watch until the end of the video, because this is not just the story of the homeless, but a wake-up call for an entire nation that is losing its own soul. And who knows, the city you are living in might also be on this list. There was a time when just mentioning Los Angeles would immediately bring to mind the Hollywood lights and the boulevards brimming with opportunities. The jewel of the American West, where millions once flocked in hopes of a better life, is the vibrant embodiment of the American dream. But today, if you return to the streets that once shone brightly, you will witness a harsh reality. On Venice Boulevard, tents sprout up like weeds after the rain. Under the Echo Park Bridge, the whole family huddles under a tattered blanket. The scene, which seemed to exist only in post-apocalyptic movies, is now present right in the heart of California.
It's worse than a third world country or a refugee camp. Right here in LA, one of the richest cities in the world.
Los Angeles is currently one of the places with the highest number of homeless people in the United States, with over 75,000 individuals, and this number shows no signs of stopping. A number that is not only concerning, but also signals that something is collapsing deep within the social structure of this city. What is happening here, in a city dubbed the wealthiest in the world, is even more terrifying than the prospect of World War III breaking out. Listen to the story of Holly, a homeless woman who has been wandering the streets of Los Angeles for 3 months. During a sweep by the authorities, all her belongings were thrown away without warning right after she moved her stuff to the sidewalk as instructed by the police.
These $100,000 a year. Had some stuff happen, a divorce, a couple different things that I just gave up on my life, I guess. So.
Previously, she had a stable job in Colorado with an income of about $100,000 per year. But after the divorce and personal upheavals, her life gradually spiraled into an irreparable decline. She had tried to apply for assistance and jobs at 75 different places, but no one followed up on her applications, and there were no housing options other than being on the waiting list. She feels that she, along with the people trying to survive here, are being rendered invisible, and she is gradually becoming desperate with her own life. Holly's story is no exception. She is just one of tens of thousands of lives struggling to survive each day on the sidewalks of Los Angeles. A city once a symbol of new beginnings, now has become a place where dreams never had the chance to bloom. So what is really wrong here? How could a city once seen as a symbol of opportunity turn its back on the very residents who helped build it? And why can even those who once had good incomes and stable jobs easily become homeless after just one misstep? Worse still, many areas around Skid Row, Westlake, or MacArthur Park have now spiraled out of control. The police or law enforcement can no longer ensure safety. They admit that the conflict and chaos in those areas have completely exceeded their capacity to handle. Emergency calls from businesses are increasingly being delayed due to a lack of manpower, because of danger, and because there are no effective solutions left. So if a city that was once a symbol of opportunity and light is now becoming a hell of despair. then what awaits the next cities? And the most terrifying thing is that nothing can stop this from happening to you or your loved ones. Don't be quick to think that Los Angeles is the city facing the most severe crisis. Because what you are about to see in the second city will make you even more doubtful about your beliefs. New York, a place that once represented the promise, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. But today, that promise has shattered on the cold sidewalks of Manhattan. The city seems to be trying to piece together its former glamorous image. But ironically, all the pieces are despair. And if you make it here, perhaps you have learned how to sleep under neon lights instead of under a roof or on a soft bed. According to the latest report from the Coalition for the Homeless, the number of homeless people staying overnight in shelters in New York has exceeded 93,000. Among them, nearly 40,000 are children, and the number of elderly homeless has nearly tripled in recent years. The numbers that once seemed lifeless on paper are now becoming a real crisis, and according to social workers themselves, beyond control. In the Bronx and areas like East Harlem, many buildings that once housed low-income families have been abandoned or sold to investment funds, only to be transformed into luxury apartments shining with lights that local residents can only look at through the glass. Meanwhile, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in New York has exceeded $3,900 per month, an unrealistic figure for most residents. With a wage of $9 per hour, a worker has to work nearly 90 hours a week just to pay the rent, not to mention utilities, medicine, or food. A roof over one's head, something that seemed like a basic necessity, has now become a luxury item. And when they cannot afford it, it means they are forced to live on the streets and find ways to survive in the harshness out there. This is not just a social issue. This is a crack, spreading, smoldering, and threatening every value that America once prided itself on.
If there are so many shelters here, why are we seeing so many people on the streets?
Because the shelters are so unsafe that people would rather be in the streets than be in those shelters.
Many homeless people who once stayed in shelters recount experiences so terrible that they would rather sleep outside than go back there. Moldy food, unsanitary living conditions, and danger lurking everywhere. The place called shelter has become a hell for them. They chose the streets because at least there, they could still feel a bit of freedom and safety. The irony is, billions of dollars have been poured into the system to solve the homelessness crisis. But instead of healing, that money is nurturing a distorted machine, a bureaucratic system that is inefficient, manipulated by interests, and lacks listening to those who are actually affected. This situation is no longer just a housing crisis. This is the cumulative result of a series of breaking points. The healthcare system is exhausted, welfare for the elderly has been cut back, the housing market is manipulated by speculation, and a society that seems to gradually forget that the homeless were once neighbors, colleagues, teachers, waiters, or veterans in this community. So, does the dream of Los Angeles still exist? Or has it been put up for sale at a price that none of us can afford anymore? Perhaps the first thing you can feel when you step foot in San Francisco is no longer the scenery of a picturesque city, or the smell of coffee mingling with the sea breeze, but the smell of urine, trash, and the despair of people lying sprawled on the sidewalks. The city is less than 50 square miles in size, yet it has over 8,000 homeless people living there, not counting those who do not access shelters or those living in vehicles or tents along the streets. What's worse is that 1/4 of them are elderly people who once had jobs and dedicated their youth to this city. In the Tenderloin, Mission Street, or south of Market areas, it's not hard to see rows of tents stretching for hundreds of meters, with people lying close together, crammed into every corner of the streets. A 63-year-old man, once an accountant, now living in a broken-down van. He shared, "I used to have a normal life until my wife passed away, and I couldn't afford the rent. Everything went downhill too quickly. Just a few weeks ago, I had a roof over my head, and now I have to sleep under the overpass. Just a few weeks ago, I had a roof over my head, and now I have to sleep under an overpass." San Francisco has a budget of nearly $700 million each year for the issue of homelessness, more than the total GDP of a small country. The city has implemented a wide range of programs, from distributing clean needles to providing food, medical care, and distributing free tents. But what about the effectiveness? The answer does not lie on paper, but in the trash-filled corners of the streets, the people wandering in a zombie-like state, and a shelter system that is always overcrowded. A community health worker shared that there was a shelter where 3 incidents of chaos occurred in just one night. And so, many people choose to stay on the sidewalk, where at least they still have a small amount of control over their own instability. Worse still, some people deliberately cause trouble just to get into jail, because there, they have shelter and 3 meals without being starved. A desperate act, but the only choice in a system that has rejected them too many times. But what sends chills down one's spine even more is those people living on the sidewalks were once people just like us. They once had jobs, once had dreams, once thought their lives were stable. They once had jobs, once had dreams, once thought their lives were stable. The only difference is they stumbled once and there was no way back. And the only difference is they stumbled once and there's no turning back. If a wealthy city like San Francisco, backed by Silicon Valley, with a huge budget and a team of experts, cannot protect its most vulnerable people, then what awaits the rest of America? Seattle. The city once praised as one of the most livable places in America. But right here, according to the report by the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, over 53,000 instances of homelessness had to access emergency services in 2024. And the frightening thing is that more than 70% of them are not in shelters, but have to sleep outdoors, in tents, cars, or under bridges. A modern city with a plethora of billion-dollar tech companies where luxury apartments for engineers can cost up to $4,500 a month, simultaneously harbors tent villages stretching into the darkness where people sleep next to rats, garbage, and despair. Shelters lack staff, do not ensure hygiene, and frequently experience disputes. People with mild mental health disorders quickly get caught in a spiral of despair, to the point where many frontline doctors warn, "We are using shelters like prisons instead of places for recovery." Those who once sought help have returned to the streets. And so those who once wanted help return to the sidewalks. But homelessness in Seattle is not just a tragedy for the poor. It spreads to every household, every small shop, every public bus stop. The owner of an old grocery store in Belltown shared, "I no longer know how to explain to tourists when they see homeless people sleeping in front of the store. They don't come back anymore. They left. They left." And when even a modern city with sufficient budget, technology, and goodwill still unable to keep its citizens housed. And when a modern city with sufficient budget, technology, and goodwill still fails to provide its citizens with a roof over their heads. Is there something deeper, more dangerous, quietly eroding America? Not from the outside, but from within. Once hailed as one of the most livable cities in America, Portland, the cultural and environmental capital of Oregon, is now gradually losing its very soul. According to the latest data, by the end of 2024, more than 6,300 people are living without stable housing in Portland, with nearly 80% having to live outdoors or in tents. What is concerning is that the rate of elderly homeless individuals here has increased by nearly 30% in just the past 3 years. A sign that the crisis is no longer temporary, but has become systemic. Although the authorities have taken action, the shelter programs are always overloaded. The infrastructure is deteriorating, and the recovery rate after receiving assistance is very low. Worse still, a portion of the homeless, unable to find a safe place, have chosen to go to jail as a solution for shelter and daily food. Portland is following the path that many other major cities have gone through, but at a faster pace and with clearer consequences. Not just the story of a city, this is a warning for the entire nation if we do not soon confront the crisis gnawing from within. And if Portland, the city of progressives, of freedom and respect, is also falling, then is there anywhere in America that can keep the promise of no one left behind? Philadelphia, the cradle of the Declaration of Independence and the US Constitution. The city of history, of freedom, of the values that America has built and pursued for centuries. But stepping into Philadelphia in 2025, one no longer sees the glory of a symbol of democracy. Instead, there are devastated streets, chaotic homeless camps, and an atmosphere thick with resignation. According to statistics from the city's Homeless Solutions Commission, Philadelphia currently has more than 5,500 people living without homes, a seemingly small number for a city of over 1 million people. But in reality, it is one of the highest rates on the East Coast when including those not registered in official shelters. If even the city of the Declaration of Independence cannot protect its most vulnerable citizens, then is there any city that can? Chicago, the city of skyscrapers, of jazz music, of an industrial base that once thrived and propelled the entire United States forward after the World War. But today, behind the great architectural works are small people, shivering in the cold wind with nowhere to return to. Chicago is currently witnessing one of the most severe homelessness crises in the Midwest. According to the latest data from the city, more than 68,000 people experienced homelessness in 2024. What is even more concerning is that the number of chronically homeless individuals, those unable to escape their situation for months on end, is skyrocketing, particularly among the elderly and disabled. And amidst the cold winter winds blowing across Lake Michigan, the homeless still lie there, at the foot of the office towers lit up all night, where banquets continue as if nothing has ever collapsed. The issue of homelessness in Chicago is no longer just a story about a marginalized group. It is gradually becoming a chronic disease of a once proud city. And when core values such as unity, compassion, and community responsibility are eroded, is there anything left to keep this city from falling apart? San Diego, known as one of the places with the most temperate climate and the most beautiful coastal scenery in the United States. But the golden sun and ocean waves are not enough to hide the truth. This place, once called a resort paradise, is becoming one of the epicenters of the national homelessness crisis. By 2025, more than 10,200 people are living in homelessness in San Diego County, a record high in local history. But what is even more alarming is the growth rate. Every year, thousands more fall into homelessness, and the city can barely keep up. In a place known for its expensive tourist resorts, sprawling beaches, and military service hubs, the existence of tent cities along highways, near beaches, and bus stations is a bitter paradox. Along with that is an overloaded shelter system, months-long waiting lists, and local authorities continuously offering temporary solutions. But the most concerning issue is how this city is facing the collapse happening right before its eyes. Many support programs have been cut or suspended due to lack of resources. Some areas have even enacted bans on setting up tents, prohibiting sleeping on sidewalks at night, as if removing homeless people from sight would eliminate the root of the problem. If San Diego, a wealthy city with many efforts, cannot control this crisis, what awaits other places? Denver, the vibrant capital in the heart of America, once hailed as the crossroads of modern industry and the majestic nature of the Rocky Mountains. But amidst that prosperous facade, a crisis is quietly destroying the very soul of the city. In 2025, the number of homeless people in Denver surpassed 10,000, the highest level in the city's history. But what worries many people even more is that the crisis is no longer confined to specific street corners. It is infiltrating every aspect of urban life: parks, parking lots, public libraries, even in front of schools. The shelter system in Denver, once praised as humane, is now at full capacity. Many places refuse to accept more people because they cannot ensure safety, hygiene, and even lack electricity and hot water in winter. Meanwhile, winter in Colorado is something that a homeless person would find it hard to survive if they only wrapped themselves in a thin, tattered blanket. The city's budget for homeless support programs has doubled in the past 5 years. But what has been the result? The number of homeless people is increasing faster than the rate of building temporary housing. Measures such as clearing camps and moving people out of parks only make the problem relocate, not disappear. They are driven from one place to another, but nowhere can truly welcome them. If even a city blessed with nature and sustainable development like Denver cannot keep its people off the streets, then is there any place strong enough to prevent us from falling into this abyss? Phoenix, the radiant city of the sun, once an ideal refuge for retirees, migrant workers, and families wanting to start a new life with lower costs than California. But by 2025, this very place became one of the worst hotspots of the homelessness crisis in the US. The term hotspot is used here not only because summer temperatures in Phoenix often exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit, but also because the tent cities where the homeless have to live in the desert are expanding like an uncontrolled wildfire. When the pavement is hot enough to burn human skin and shade becomes a luxury, being homeless in Phoenix is no different from a death sentence. The biggest problem in Phoenix is not just the lack of resources, but the depletion of a welfare system that was already fragile. The shelter system here is overwhelmed, emergency heat measures often come too late, and emergency response efforts resemble patching increasingly larger holes in a sinking ship. Phoenix, a name meaning phoenix, the bird that rises from the ashes, has now become a paradoxical image. Does this city still have the strength to revive itself, or will it become a symbol of an America quietly burning the last hopes of the vulnerable? We have just passed through the largest cities in America, once praised as the centers of freedom, opportunity, and prosperity. But now, beneath the veneer of glamour, there are people huddled under awnings, sleeping among the trash and despair, not because they are lazy, but because the system has stopped listening to them long ago. A strong nation is not judged by its GDP or the number of skyscrapers, but by how it takes care of the most vulnerable in the community. When a veteran has no shelter, when a child has to sleep in a tent instead of having a warm bed, that is not just a policy failure, but a deep crack in the American spirit. So, in your opinion, does the American dream still exist? If we no longer dare to dream of a place where everyone deserves a home? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with our latest videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. This video is created to analyze and reflect a real slice of life in Los Angeles, with the aim of sparking reflection and positive dialogue within the community. All information, images, and data are illustrative, cited from public and reliable sources. We do not hold any individual or organization responsible, nor do we draw absolute conclusions. Viewers are encouraged to approach the content with an open mind and continue exploring from various perspectives.